Hey, what's going on, guys? As you may have seen, there was a stream this weekend, and they basically revealed a lot of information about the upcoming 1.5 year anniversary. There is a lot of stuff that we kind of knew was coming, but then there was also stuff that was pretty much a pretty good surprise. But I wanted to go over something, and specifically, I kind of wanted to go over one of the slides that they sort of had up for a while. So basically, this is basically telling us every way that we can acquire shards in this during this event period. And I noticed that they spent a lot of time here, and they sort of were talking about it a lot. And so my thing is just, I felt like they sort of wanted us to know as players that, hey, even if you don't see like a festival medal, or it's not as good as you think it might be, there's a lot of ways for you to get shards. So they kind of listed a bunch of different ways out. So there was one that actually stood out to me as should have been on here, but I don't see it on here. And that would be the guild summons. I'm pretty sure they must have just omitted that because there's a pretty good chance we're going to get the guild summons. But just in case, like, you might want to like keep that in mind that there might not be guild summons, because they did not actually list that here. And they technically didn't list out the Mind Sphere shop. I'm not entirely sure if they count that as shards, but keep in mind that that's something that they did not list out. So let's kind of go through this and sort of just kind of talk about what each one is. So the login bonus is probably the most obvious one. You log in every day, you collect some shards. Who knows if they're, I think they actually did talk about what days that we're going to get what. But, sometimes it's a bunch at a time, like 40, sometimes it's like 10 at a time. But, I think we're kind of used to that. Challenge missions would be the bingos, which pretty much straightforward. Milestone missions, that's one that I didn't really understand what it was. From what I was thinking, it might be something like in Trials of Reckoning, once you get to a certain point score, or, in raids, once you get to a certain raid level, you get certain rewards. I was thinking it might have been something like that. Then I also thought, like, sometimes during the events, whenever we get the level 40 hard quest for the unit, sometimes they put the shards in the event tab. So I thought that's kind of what it meant. So the next two are kind of the ones I'm a little iffy about. So there's the event medal exchange shop and the summon medal exchange shop. So the summon medals make sense. It's the coins that you get when you do the summons, and they count towards pity. And if you get the unit before pity, you can exchange those for shards. So the reason I kind of grouped these two together is because I'm kind of wondering, like, why would they separate the event medal shards? So this can either mean two things. So number one is the usual festival medals that we get. If so, good, like, you don't need to listen to the rest of what I have to say, that's fine. But part of me thinks that this is something else. The same way we get like those little story events and they have a medal exchange shop, it might just be that. And honestly, that might be limited to like 40 or 80 shards. So one thing in the JP version is, leading up to the Final Fantasy VII Remake event, they actually were giving out daily tokens. Because you guys remember, they announced it, and then JP still had to wait. So they were giving out daily tokens, similar to what we had for Warrior of Light, where we had a bunch of tokens ahead of time that we were able to save up and just exchange them for Warrior of Light shards. I think it's either one of those two, either the story event or similar to the Warrior event, the Warrior of Light event shop. I think it's one of those two, and I have a feeling that it's not going to be like those festival medals. We'll have to really see, but I'm kind of just saying that, guys, so that you guys are prepared. All right, let's go down the list here. Summons, so obviously that's when you summon the unit, and like you might get a dupe of the unit, and that converts into 40 shards. I think that's what that means. Soul Star Exchange shops. I don't know why they said that twice, but those are the soul stars that we get for each summon. So we kind of, I know a lot of us hate those, but those are going to be there. Chocobo Expeditions, Obviously, Chocobos. There's going to be the new Sector 6 underground, whatever it's called. So that's going to be an option. And of course, the barracks. So again, what they didn't specifically mention were the guild summons and the Mind Sphere shop. I'm assuming there's going to be Mind Spheres. And then the one that's iffy is, are we going to get festival medals? They didn't specifically say festival medals, but we'll have to see. So in my next slide here, I sort of wanted to point out this current banner that we have. And so I think this kind of banner is actually pretty good. And it might be a little preview of what they might actually do for this event, where they might have paid banners where you can get like Mind Spheres. And so the good thing about Mind Spheres is that they're going to be generic for Final Fantasy VII. So they're going to count for any Final Fantasy VII units. So you won't have to worry about whether it's Cloud or Tifa or Barret or anything like that. So that's going to be good once you get to the EX levels. If we don't have festival medals, like, I understand that the draw of the festival medals was that you can work on other older units that you kind of already have and not necessarily event units. And so that's sort of the one disadvantage if we do get something like this. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say in terms of predictions. And I feel like nobody's really going to talk about this. So I kind of wanted to put that up front and sort of just mention that. Aside from that, I just wanted to talk about things that they spoke about in the live stream that I thought were really cool to see. All right, so let's get into the next slide, and that would be they were going over the VCs. Finally, they said something about the VCs, and sort of what I wanted to point out here is I kind of like a couple of the runner-up cards, and this was one of them. I thought it was really cool because it's sort of like a different kind of art style than what we're used to. It's almost like a more realistic, even though it's still cartoony, it's more realistic. So I thought like this specific piece of artwork would have been cool to see as the vision card winner. So next one, it's kind of, I just want to go through the runner-up and the winner. I think the winner of the contest looks pretty cool, and it looks a lot like sort of like the vision cards we're used to. Maybe more so the Shadowbringers, the Final Fantasy XIV art style. And I thought this one too was pretty much what we expect out of a vision card. And originally I wasn't sure if they were gonna like take the art and sort of just convert it to look like more of a VC. But with these two, I'm sort of pretty sure that they're pretty much just gonna take the art that was submitted and use that as the actual VC itself. So the other thing they did was that they actually put the VC border around the grand prize winner. So I think that's actually going to be what they use, and they're not really going to, you know, have their artists sort of like redo it or, you know, whatever. So it was really cool to see that they actually, you know, finally declared the winner of the vision card contest. So next thing that I kind of wanted to talk about that I was happy to see is there's going to be different buffs for the global versions of the units, and I think the vision cards as well. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure to talk about was for Barret, his focus shot is going to get like a better height range. So that's going to be good. It looks like maybe Barret was one of the units that maybe wasn't as popular in JP, so they kind of made this change for global and a couple of other changes, of course. So I'm glad that they did that kind of stuff because we're going to be able to sort of benefit from those changes and sort of maybe have a little bit more of a balance between the different units. All right, so another thing I kind of wanted to talk about, I kind of felt like this was a little bit of a troll. They kind of wanted us to kind of realize like, hey, they know that Yuna is one of the units that's being used a lot. And their answer was actually Titus for this question about what units was the most used one in the arena. But I thought it was kind of interesting to see a lot of people said Yuna. I'm pretty sure Yuna's up there in the top rank, so it's probably a more accurate answer from our part. But they wanted to point it out how basically the collaboration units are the most used units, and basically they were saying like, yeah guys, pull for these units because they're going to be good. So that, I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, the next part I wanted to mention was I believe Justin was the one that picked out these questions for the Q&A. So I want to say, Justin, good job picking out those questions, because they pretty much put the heat under the developers here. Basically, what collaborations do you guys see? And basically put them on the spot. And even though they didn't really answer, Justin was like, hey man, the players do want to know these things. Another really good question. Do you have any plans for the PC client? They kind of didn't really answer it again, but definitely good to see that our voices are definitely being heard. And number 3 was another one, basically, what other ways are we going to be able to interact? And kudos to Justin for picking those questions out, because it's really putting pressure on them to actually come up with answers for these. But obviously, one of the collaborations we're going to talk about in a little bit. And also shout out to Justin again for being Team Tifa. He pointed out, he kind of said during the thing, like, everybody's favorite Tifa. So obviously, kind of seemed like he was Team Tifa. Obviously, I'm Team Tifa as well. Oops. Whoa. Okay. So moving on. And here's the collaboration I kind of mentioned, Tomb Raider. Very surprising to see Tomb Raider being announced, and the artwork here is actually really good. I have a few others here. The Limit Burst looks amazing. I assume that's the Limit Burst, but it might actually change considering the asterisk at the bottom there. But it might just not be finalized. That's really all that is. Here's another part. I really thought the artwork here was really good, and it's good to see the artists for this game are amazing. Hopefully, I just wanted to make sure that they weren't getting paid with Amazon Kindles, because sometimes it feels like when they have these contests and the prize is Amazon Kindles, it's kind of making me feel like, wait, why aren't, if you're entering this contest, basically saving the artist from having to do artwork, why isn't that person being paid money to basically make artwork for this game like the artist who? It's kind of a weird little thing that bothered me, I guess. I just wanted to bring that up. And last but not least, the Tomb Raider collaboration is actually coming up pretty soon, and that's actually surprising. Usually they do announce things pretty close to the release, but I'm surprised to see that this is coming up so soon. So that's actually really good to see that. I'm glad that's coming. All right, that's basically all I had to say. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.